Tell him, Nico di Angelo. Tell him you are a coward, afraid of yourself and your feelings. Tell him the real reason you ran from Camp Half-Blood, and why you are always alone. Nico and Jason are pushed to their limit in this fight, and the waves of darkness that rolled off of Nico allowed Jason to see things from his view. Jason saw Percy protecting Nico and Bianca from the Manticore back in the Titan's Curse. Percy's sword was described as gleaming in the dark, and in a sense, Percy was a sort of light in the dark for Nico. He was the first demigod Nico had ever seen. He was brave and strong, everything that Nico looked up to. Nico trusted Percy when he promised to keep Bianca safe, because in Nico's eyes, Percy was a true hero. This scene shows us all the pain Nico went through, how he wasn't able to deal with the betrayal and sadness of Percy's broken promise and Bianca's death, and in the end, it's revealed that Nico actually liked Percy all along. This is also the scene where Nico makes his first real friend, Jason, which makes his story even sadder for reasons I will get to later. Although Zoe only appeared in one book, her story and her death was still one of the most impactful of the series. Throughout the Titan's Curse, we learned about her past, how she helped Hercules on his quest by giving him Anaklusmos, which is now Percy's sword, which got her exiled from her family pretty much. We see how Hercules never gave her any credit and acted as if she never existed, which is why she joined the Hunters and held a grudge against male heroes, especially Percy. Throughout the book, we follow Percy and Zoe on their quest, and see Percy slowly prove to her that he isn't Hercules. In the end, Zoe dies fighting alongside Percy, and some of her last words are, "You spoke the truth, Percy Jackson. You are nothing like Hercules. I am honored that you carry this sword." Artemis then turned Zoe into a new constellation so that she could live forever among the stars. Luke's story was a sad one from the start. His mother was driven insane trying to host the Oracle to the point where Luke was forced to abandon her and run away at only 9 years old. Since Luke's father Hermes wasn't there, this was the point when Luke started to lose himself to his hatred for the Olympians. Then he found Talia and Annabeth, and the three of them became a family of sorts, Luke promising to never fail them like his father failed him. Unfortunately, Luke lost his way and became the host for Kronos. However, in the final battle, Annabeth reminds him of the promise he made to her. Luke realizes what he's done, and in the end, he manages to wrestle back control of his body, and ultimately sacrifices himself to defeat Kronos. Bob's death is one of the most memorable, and for good reason. Throughout the House of Hades, Bob protects Percy and Annabeth from countless dangers. He's the only reason they make it through Tartarus, and even when he finds out that Percy abandoned him after wiping his memory, and that he is really the Titan Aegyptus, he still chooses to help him and stay as Bob. In the end, Bob takes on the impossible task of holding off Tartarus to let Percy and Annabeth escape. They say their final goodbyes, Bob calling Percy and Annabeth his friends, before he says, "Tell the sun and the stars hello for me." On a side note, I don't think Bob is really dead. I'm pretty sure it's going to be revealed that he's alive in the upcoming Son of the Star book, but nevertheless, this moment was still very sad. Maybe I'm biased a bit because Leo is my favorite character, but I think his life deserves an honorable mention on this list. I already made 2 videos about this, but here's a brief overview of why it's so sad. From a young age, Leo was already chosen to be a hero, and he was visited many times by Hera. In order to prevent him from growing up to be a part of the Seven, Gaia tricked him into killing his mother. His family rejected him after his mother's death, and he was left alone, using humor to hide his pain. Leo eventually found a home with Jason and Piper, but once again, that didn't last. Even though Beckendorf didn't get a lot of screen time, we still loved him as a character. He was an extremely brave demigod, sacrificing himself to destroy the Princess Andromeda. Percy blamed himself for Beckendorf's death, but Nico eventually met his ghost in Elysium, where Beckendorf tells him to tell Percy it wasn't his fault. I think that because of the lighthearted nature of the books, it's easy to overlook how sad Percy's story is. Percy was just a kid when his mother was killed before his eyes, and he was thrown into the world of demigods and monsters. He was forced to take on impossible quests for the gods throughout his childhood, losing so many of his friends along the way. When he finally defeated Kronos and saved the world, the fates called upon him once again to undertake an even more painful journey than the last, and become part of the Seven. Percy has battled some of history's greatest enemies, been betrayed by people he looked up to, lost many of his friends in wars that had nothing to do with them, and overall just has been through some of the hardest mental and physical tasks possible. It really is crazy how he managed to never lose himself through all that. Jason had unrealistic pressure placed on him from an even younger age than Percy. He grew up in the Wolf House after being abandoned by his mother and survived many harsh trials. Once he made it to Camp Jupiter, he rejected his place in the first cohort and instead joined the 5th in hopes of restoring its honor. In the Burning Maze, the prophecy said that either him or Piper would die permanently, so he decided to face Caligula himself to protect Piper. He planned out a new design for Camp Jupiter to include shrines for all the minor gods, and made Apollo promise to take his design to Camp Jupiter if anything things should happen to him. In the end, Jason makes Apollo promise to remember what it's like to be human, before buying him, Piper, and Meg enough time to escape Caligula. What makes his death even more sad is that Leo never got to see Jason again after the final battle with Gaia, and that he and Piper never got to say goodbye.